at Congress Place. They owe $6.4 billion now. They would not pay it, and the City Council will not go after them. Yet they will say to the workers there that they don't have a source of revenue to pay them. If they were serious about discharging their responsibilities impartially, they would send out that demand notice to the PNC. Instead of doing that, they've been busy renting properties to the PNC that are owned by the city at like almost an unbelievably low rate. $100,000 per year in rental for properties that they have. And these are given to the PNC in various parts of the city. So I hope that our councillors there on the City Council would push them to go after this source of revenue that's just sitting there that can significantly alleviate the woes of the workers as well as citizens who are looking for service from the City Council. Now, this week has been characterized once again by, or the past week has been characterized by a whole range of issues that I see as distraction from the core goal. And as I pointed out in the past, that this will increasingly become the norm as we get closer, have a whole range of peripheral issues occupying mainstream space, especially by the opposition, with the hope that our performance in government will be defined by these single issues rather than the major things that matter to people. It's a clever way of distracting people from the core issues that affect them. And as I said before, my purpose at these meetings, or one of the purposes of this press conference, is to routinely, every week, draw attention back to the core issues, things that matter to people, jobs, their housing, education, healthcare. These are important issues to our people, scholarships to our children, etc. So I've seen also, and I'm going to illustrate this by a couple of issues, an increasing desperation by the opposition that they are willing to engage with the devil even to score a political point. And often the devil will not come up for scrutiny from the international, from the national press. So we've seen Nigel Hughes, after his stars faded rapidly, and he was exposed for what he really was and is. And if anyone has an opportunity to do so, please listen to Anil Nandalal's program that he had the past week, because he went into greater details on who the person is, because many people did not know him. He didn't come up for scrutiny from a political perspective. They just focus on him in the legal fraternity. But Nandalal went into great detail, something I don't wish to do at this press conference, because I don't want him. He is a peripheral character in the scheme of the bigger politics too. So I don't want to do that. But Nandalal went into great detail about the role he played in the past, and that role has not been a positive one in his entire history of being associated with competitive politics. And so, please look at that. But he is willing now to sit routinely with a Rickford Burke. Not just a wild character, but a person who is racist, who is abusive of people of every race, not just Indo-Guyanese. In the past, his abuse was confined and his racism was confined to Indo-Guyanese. He's getting increasingly desperate, so he calls people house slaves, soup drinkers, all sorts of vile abuse for any decent person of any race now whatsoever. And a person like Nigel Hughes will sit down. He is their champion now in their quest for publicity, because on their mainstream platform, they don't get any viewership. If you look at their press conferences or the AFC pages, it's damp, it's dead, it's like a dodo page. And so they're hoping that they can latch on to the extremists who tend to, not all of the people, some people go there, the Burke's page for amusement, but they hope they can get a wider viewership for their dated and mediocre ideas. So if someone is so desperate as to embrace not just a racist, but an extremist in your quest for relevance, then you realize that you're in bad shape. You're desperate as a political party. So that we saw that happen in the course of the last couple of weeks, and increasingly so. And when you have, as the PNC, you have to put out big press releases when you meet a party that's called some kingdom of something, I don't even know, a new party. I don't even know, some KLM. I thought first that the PNC, because they put a press release, a big picture, and everything, that they met KLM, the airline that was, we're hoping that would fly from Guyana directly into Europe, creating a new route that would make it easier for our people to access Europe, etc. So I said, that's good, it's something positive for the first time after a long time, and I hope they encourage KLM. Then I realized it's a new political party that's formed. And there's it's almost desperation when you have to do that sort of thing. It's desperation by a serious Burnham's party. This is Burnham's party that has to now seek relevance by making major press releases, not just a picture posted, but a major press release on an issue like that. And I've seen in the course of the last week, maybe 4 more parties have been formed. As I said before, you're going to have lots of zero parties being formed before we get to elections. The ballot would be as long as one of my friends' head, but I shouldn't be talking about people's head size. But it's going to be a really, really long ballot paper, because people have no consequences. You know, in some countries, you put up a deposit if you want to contest, because it costs the taxpayers to print your name on the ballot and to give you all the paperwork. In this country, you don't have to put up a deposit. And if they don't make a percentage of votes, they lose their deposit. So we can have in this country a lot of nuisance parties without any consequences. They don't lose any money. They just can come up one day and incorporate as a party, a man and his wife, and they call themselves a political party, and then issue press statements, and then become part of the coalition, like Sharma, one-man party, then become a minister in the government, you know, hoping that you can get some sort of position in government. So you're going to see every week new ones being formed. And then the desperate PNC is going to try to embrace them and talk about a coalition of nothing. So that was one issue that has been in the public domain. And it just says to me, you got to be extremely desperate to be pursuing your politics in this manner. The next issue has been the Brutus matter. So, Brutus, it appeared in the media that Brutus sued the government about the government's diversity policy. So I asked the Attorney General up to midday, have the documents been filed or served on your office, the AG's office? And he said, until midday today, no. But the documents found their way to the media. So it's already in the media nearly a week now, about this pending lawsuit against the government by Brutus on its racial or diversity policy, which is a word that he coined, but it has not been served on the Attorney General as of today. So it is for PR purposes, I think. The merit of it, I think, is zero. So first of all, there is a claim that somewhere along the line, the PPP said, we would like to see diversity in all of our institutions and across the country. And I support that because we've been open about it. We've spoken about having diversity that reflects the people of our country in every institution, including in our party, the People's Progressive Party. We want diversity, and you've seen us working towards this. The parties must look like the country, or our party, at least not the others, and the institutions of the state must reflect all of our people. So I don't see anything wrong with that. In fact, it is a laudable motive. It's not like Walter Lawrence saying, you know, you have to be a PNC member only to get a job in the state. As I said before, we've never checked people's political affiliation when they come for a job. So that's something that we're proud of. So, but apparently, Brutus, in what I read in the newspaper, is saying that somehow I spoke with the Commissioner of Police and had him remove from a position he had there, which was head of administration in the police force, because I wanted Budram to gain administrative experience. And he's being replaced by Budram as head of admin because, and it's discriminatory, based on a directive from me. So first of all, there has been no such directive. Never met with the Commissioner of Police, and I never asked him to replace Brutus as head of admin. But I spoke with a number of people, my colleagues, about what was being discovered, what people were coming to tell me about. And these are not Indo-Guyanese. Large numbers of people kept coming to me and saying, we can't get paid. There was a mechanic, Afro-Guyanese mechanic, who said to me, they owe me for 150 vehicles that I repaired. In the last 3 years, I did not receive a single cent from them. I keep running all the time to the police admin, no money. Just a small guy, not a big person. And there were lots of other complaints of that nature. So I wish people had come earlier. And I have no apology, and we have no apology for his removal from the admin. This was not discrimination. I'll tell you why now. Since Brutus has been really running around and operating in a manner as though he's this clean, upstanding officer who's now being discriminated against by the PPP because of his race. Let me give you some of the particulars of the charges. So I have here a long list, the particular of the offenses. So $14.8 million, and these take place at different times. $14.8 million payment for the supply of 3,150 metal buttons, 560 lanyards, and 943 male P caps. Payment made, nothing delivered. Remember, he was in charge of administration in the police force. So all of these things that were supposed to come, the caps and everything else, did not come. Who did it deprive? It's the policemen. On another occasion, $14 million for 450 handcuffs, 643 handcuff cases, and 950 male P caps, not delivered, $14 million paid. Another occasion, $14.8 million, supply of 450 combat boots, 250 shoes, 343 leg holsters, nothing delivered, money paid. Another occasion, 500 pair boots, 620 waist holsters, nothing, more money, for 14.5 million paid, nothing delivered. These are all charges, separate charges. I can't go down all of them. I'm just giving you a few examples. People want to know what was happening in administration. This was in his tenure as head of admin. 14,680 pointed stars, 750 batons, 900 plastic black belts, nothing delivered. 14.7 million, 1,550 meters tetric material, 1,500 meters khaki drill material, etc., nothing delivered. 14.3 million, 4,180 black socks, 2,550 meters of tetric material, 3,340 white vests, nothing delivered, money paid. I can go down the long list. And so, these are the charges. There are lots of them he has to answer for. He will get the chance to do so in court. But this had nothing to do with race. Absolutely nothing, that he is now trying to make that, in this environment, he's trying to accuse the PPP of racial discrimination now. Now, who did not benefit from these things that were paid for? It's the policemen. They didn't get their socks or their vests or etc. or the uniforms in time because of this, or their boots, or got low quality in some other cases. Who were you depriving? It's not the PPP necessarily, it's the policemen, who are made up of people of every race. But what is shocking, you know, I would not have dealt with this matter in this manner, because I think Brutus will say anything to get himself out of hot water. But then to look at the duplicity of the opposition, you would recall that this was the government, the opposition, that said, first of all, that Paul said, on the specific issue of Assistant Police Commissioner Brutus, many Guyanese are rightfully questioning how is it possible for any citizen, much less a politically exposed person like the Assistant Commissioner of Police, to amass almost $1 billion of questionable resources without setting off money laundering or proceeds of crime. Red flags. We pointed out that it was the deposits that set off the red flag too, because that's how the FIU got the suspicious transaction reports, and that is how it was pointed out. Norton said, you cannot charge Caesar to be tried by Caesar. I'm dead sure if tomorrow morning Jagdeo gets up and says there's nothing against Brutus, the DPP will withdraw the charges. Ramjatan said, the easiest way to compensate the police for their loyalty is to give certain favored officers on rank and file free rein to be corrupt. So this explains what is happening to this sordid Brutus debacle. He now being obviously the richest of a policeman in Guyana. That's the kind of language they use. Nigel Hughes said he wants an external investigation because we would not be able to impartially investigate Brutus. He's too close to the PPP government. That was their position at that time, before the start of the investigation. The PPP, Brutus was corrupt. The PPP could not be trusted to investigate him and charge him. And they wanted an external investigation. Now, Norton has embraced Brutus's claim that he's been racially discrimination. This is where the desperation is, and that's the point I'm leading to. All along he was corrupt. All along he was in bed with the PPP. That was their claim. Now, because he makes a charge that he's being racially discriminated against, they forget all about this so-called corruption. Now he is as clean as whistle. And it's this big bad PPP government that is discriminating against him. This is how desperate they are. To embrace someone now because he makes a charges about racism, and that is all that they campaign with now, on racism. So they're prepare to forego all that they said before at the risk of losing the credibility that they know they don't have much of that, but at the risk of losing even the modicum of credibility that they have. Just because the man mentions the magic word, PPP is discriminating against me because of my race. That's a magic word for them, race. And suddenly they embrace Brutus and say, yes, this must be true. It gotta be not that because he's done all of these things and deprive all of the Afro-Guyanese policemen of everything else, all of this stuff. It must be true because of race, PPP's racism. And at the week they spent, the last week they spent stirring this issue again, another racist issue. So it is indicative of the desperation again, not just about aligning themselves with the extremes and elevating non-events into events of them, like the KLM event, but it is even to forego what they know is wrong, even to embrace corruption to make a political or a racial point. They're prepared to do that. This is desperation politics. And the next one we hear is the census. Since I started politics, they have always done the ethnic count. Indo-Guyanese population has been declining in Guyana, so the PPP will lose the elections. Indo-Guyanese population has been declining, so the PPP would lose the elections. Not today. From the beginning that I started politics in. And for them, it's just about race. But we've shown over the years that we've won the elections. We won the elections in spite of a declining Indo-Guyanese population, it's true. And because of our national politics. And so even in 2015, if you say they won only by 4,600 votes. That was the majority, that they got more than us. And that was the best year after we'd been in office for a long time. A lot of their lies were resonating with people. And people believed that they would do what they were saying, which was to create jobs and to help our children and lower taxes and more housing, none of which they did. So that was their best year, 2015, because there was a groundswell, young people believed them, they'd forgotten their past about the rigging elections, etc. The best year, they won us by 4,600 votes. And we still had some discrepancies where we asked for recount, and we never got the recount. But say they won fairly. It was the best year. But they kept doing the ethnic count every single year I've been in politics, from every election in the past, that they will win because the Indo-Guyanese population is declining. And the elections come and they don't. And then we win the elections because of our politics, which caters for all the people of the country. And they're at it again. Oh, the census is not coming out to show the Indo-Guyanese population is declining. You know, they started it again. It's a racial politics. They can't move away from it. And they're going to be disappointed again. They're going to be very, very disappointed because in our ranks, we have Indo-Guyanese, Afro-Guyanese, Amerindian Guyanese, people of mixed descent, everyone, Portuguese, Chinese. That's how we operate versus the ethnic enclaves that their parties have become. And that's not sustainable. So you're going to see that again. So the last week it has been about that too. Even Nigel Hughes posting about census. I want to see the census to show the declining population and Indo-Guyanese population. It does not matter. We're going to win the elections because of our national politics. And they know it I don't know in there. This is like consoling themselves. You know, they need self-therapy. They need this therapy for the loss. So, let's talk about the declining Indo-Guyanese population. It doesn't matter. Our party won the elections when all the odds were stacked against us in 2020. And it has grown immeasurably since. Grown immeasurably. And we have delivered on our promises and the key areas that you people talk. They would want us to go back to judge us on whether a wheelchair was delivered to a man. In the meantime, we return to 200,000 kids in this country, $50,000 per year that APNU had taken away the 10,000 that they are getting. We gave them back, and 200,000 of them now get $50,000 per year based on our promise. But they want you to judge us on wheelchair or whose pothole, which road has a pothole still, right? Not the ones that we have done, the 3,000, nearly 4,000 roads, but which one still has a pothole. And the Stabroek News now talking about the design of the East Bank Road, the 4-lane road. It is a little bit bumpy. Well, you just drive there in one afternoon on the Heroes Highway now, and you see the back-to-back traffic, and then skip over to the other road, the old road, and see the back-to-back traffic. And imagine if we in this government didn't build that, including with even through COVID, we work on the feasibility study and all of that. Just imagine if it had not been built. That's just imagine the alternative. What would have happened on the East Bank if we didn't do that? But there's still this week's editorial still talking about, the design is a little thing, and I don't know, it's a little bumpy up there and stuff like that. That's where they want to lead us. So this here is purely ethnic calculations all the time. And nobody calls them out for this racism. It's blatant racism, but you let the PPP say something, but they can do the ethnic count in a country and nobody calls them out for racism. Rickford Burke can call, you have one PPP politician just to be in the same room with like an open racist like Burke, if you had one on the counterpart side, and you would have them say now that that politician is tainted by the presence of the person because he's PPP. It's like the same thing, which I'll come to a minute. Let me, like with the Kit Nascimento issue, which I'll deal with separately. So on the Brutus matter, it's shameful that the AFC and APNU, having said what they said, would now say that we are saying we're in bed with Brutus, nothing will happen to him, now saying we're discriminating against him because of race. You can read the charge sheet yourself. You can read it. And it says one thing about us. Even if you perceive yourself to be close to the PP, regardless of your race, if you're Indo-Guyanese, Afro-Guyanese, or anyone else, but if you don't do what you're supposed to do, what you're paid to do, if you deprive the people of this country, as has been done in this case, then you bear responsibility for it. That's the way we will manage this country. So you recall how APNU dealt with the incorruptible officers that they named when Granger bypassed the head of the policeman who was the acting there, Ramnarain, an Indo-Guyanese, and not appoint any Indo-Guyanese in the top echelons of the police force. I raised this matter with him, and then he said, I wanted to hire people who would not succumb, I'm paraphrasing, who would not succumb to corruption. And we had several of those people involved, married in corruption, and there was a cover-up. I don't need to, sometime in the past, I presented the documents, I read them here. I don't want to go back to that to show how they covered up all the stories. That was not going to happen under the PPP. The first wind of these issues that we had, then we tackled them. And so it's shameful that they would actually try to address the matter in this way. Now, there are a couple of other issues I want to deal with too, because this surfaced. And the desperation again. Notice this week my team is desperation in the opposition camp. That's the team. So Norton Ford say party united. And you got to be really desperate. You're stretching basically the believability or the ability of Guyanese to believe what you say to the extreme. To say Norton Ford say party united. Now Roysdale Ford is on record as saying that Norton is racist. And the People's National Congress under Norton will be a racist organization. He said he withdrew from the race for the leadership of the party, claiming corruption in there and also that it was rigged. That Norton rigged the leadership contest. So he will not be part of it, withdrew from it. To believe today that the party is united, it's the same racist you've gone back to. The man who is a racist who has converted the PNC into a racist organization. You have to do this only out of desperation. And I can't imagine why else, having said that, you would do this. How you can now tell the people of the country to vote for a racist and to vote for a man who steals internal elections, a man who is corrupt, who gets these blank checks. You remember the conversation that was aired between Mai Paul, Roysdale Ford, and the guy the treasurer who signed the blank checks and gave them to Norton. And they were trying to get him to go public with that. How could you tell the people of the country when you go on the platform, please vote for this racist, corrupt person who rigged the internal elections of the country? This is the leader you want Guyana needs. That is what Roysdale Ford on the platform will be saying about Norton and the others. That is what on your record is saying. So, and this is not like somebody who was critical of them. He was an insider. It's not like somebody who was on the other side and come to a party, because sometimes people criticize each other about these things. This was an insider. Secondly, in the same news article by the Morara Waves, where they said the party is united, he said he had talks with Shadow Foreign Affairs Minister Amanza Walton. As far as I'm concerned, there isn't a major problem. So you recall Amanza now, what she said about Norton. First of all, when Vanessa Kissoon accused Norton of attempting to rape her, it was Amanza Walton and Simona Brooms who were championing the cause. They said that Norton should resign to allow an impartial investigation, which never happened, and that you must not, when people criticize her, Vanessa Kissoon, and I think rightfully so, for waiting for 10 years to say this, right? Or 10 years, he said it's 10 years ago. They said, why are you victim shaming the person? As though they already believed her, she was a victim. So if you believe that the person, the leadership of the party, that one of your fellow female activists and leader of the party said that he attempted to rape her, and you call for an impartial investigation, and nothing happened, then you're going to have a hard time selling his leadership. This is what was said. It's in black and white. So when they talk about this so-called unity and there's no major problem, there is a major problem now. Because this is on record. And how could you credibly say that we support all of these? So I think it was another week of desperation to show this so-called unity of the party. But there are some major fault lines there, and they can't be healed up easily because they would lead to major disintegration a little bit later. And I want to see how they will campaign in a credible fashion. So, in attempting to grab headlines again and to stay away from the key issues that matter to people, I saw a strange letter from Amanza Walton. So the letter speaks about Amanza Walton objects to ban on use of corruption in Parliament. So the Starbuck News story says, in her letter, the MP pointed out that the ban, which was instituted by Speaker Mansour Nadir some time ago, has been the subject of concern for parliamentarians. Now, this ban was not instituted by Mansour Nadir. I've been in Parliament for a very long time. And successive speakers have viewed this as unparliamentary language. So it might not be explicitly prohibited by Erskine May, but they have successive speakers. And even in the 5 years on the APNU, in Parliament, you could not use the word. So suddenly a big thing about, oh, Mansour Nadir instituted this ban, and it is because the PPP government wants to hide scrutiny of corruption. Therefore, Mansour Nadir is complicit with the government in introducing this ban. It's all nonsense. They know this to be the case. It has always been seen as unparliamentary language there. And I suspect it is how it's used. Not if you speak about, they talk about an anti-corruption convention, so you can't mention the word corruption there, to make it used in a ridiculous way. It is if you impugn the character of people in Parliament and out of Parliament. So take, for example, in the circus that sometimes they engage in, they go to Parliament and say, Mr. X is corrupt. Now, once you say this in Parliament, you can't be sued. So if you, but the person has no recourse now to the court to clear their name, because it's said, it's in the records. So if you want to remove the word corruption, to impugn people's character, not just to speak about corruption generally, because that I think is acceptable, but when you're using it to impugn people's character, all speakers in the past, every speaker, not Mansour Nadir, going back to the past, has always said it's unparliamentary because people don't have the recourse to a lawsuit to clear their name. And therefore, if you want to remove that, you should remove the indemnity, or basically the immunity that parliamentarians have from being sued. You should remove that too. So then they can't go and run off their mouth wildly in the parliament as they often do, especially people like Amanza Walton. So it is an attention-grabbing headline. If you wanted to talk about corruption, I can tell you a bit of corruption that took place in the APNU that she and the others overlooked. So it is the week I saw this big debate, oh, the PPP is ban this word corruption in the parliament, it has to hide. It is not so. It's just another storm in a teacup issue that they're hoping to use to distract from their abysmal track record and from their lack of achievement, and try to downplay the PPP's achievement and fulfillment of its promises to the electorate. This is another issue that was one of those issues for the week. Attention-grabbing, peripheral issue, a non-issue basically. It's been there all the time, but it's just made to seem as new. Mansour Nadir banned it, the word. Mansour Nadir did not ban the use of the word. It's always been there by every speaker. They would say it to people, you can't say that, honorable member. The speakers would say that. I have been cautioned by the speakers in the past for using the word in Parliament. So it's not a general use of the word. It's when you impugn people's character. And that is what, but they want to sling mud at people like Amanza Walton. That's all she does, slinging mud without consequences. So say the corruption, what you should talk about it openly, like at a press conference. You can speak about it. You don't have to only say it in Parliament. If you want to expose corruption, why wait until Parliament? Why not every day go and say, look, I have evidence of the corruption. Join your great leader at his press conference and expose it. Since when this country, we have a wild media too. You have wild media elements, like the Guyana news, wild, you get anything published there. factual, not factual, crazy, not crazy, anything. So while they're in place, go and talk to them. They'll carry your stuff. So to make it seem, oh, their voices are being like diminished, or somehow the great attempt to fight against corruption is being dampened down by Mansour Nadir's ruling, which he or this ban that he put on the word corruption. It is a clever use of a non-issue, and it dominated for the whole week, everybody talking about it. Another such issue, again, desperation, the attempt to sidetrack from the track record of the PPP, is the Starbuck News and the others who have been saying this. So it started off basically with Starbuck News saying a political party can fight the election on a single issue, on oil and gas renegotiation. So Glenn Lal, you can only renegotiate. Never mind, you can't string together two words. You don't know anything about policy. You don't have a coherent thought on any policy or budget, etc. But you can fight an election only on one thing: renegotiate. Never mind the consequences. So you notice this desperate attempt to make it this issue. But the whole question about the 2016 ExxonMobil agreement that was signed by Raphael Trotman. So Madman Lal, Glenn Lal, has all week been talking about how every step of the way Jagdeo was there for the signing of the agreement. Granger used to, basically implying Granger used to consult with me and Raphael Trotman along the way, etc. You know, every word that is in there. Because he's trying to equalize the two parties. He recognizes he can't blame us for the agreement. And the PP has a strong track record of what it has done in the oil and gas sector. I don't want to go back over those. But one, the local content law alone, has changed the landscape for so many Guyanese, employment and job and income opportunities. Just one thing. I don't have to talk about all the others. The 15 other things that we did to strengthen framework, etc. Just one thing. But he's trying to paint us with the same brush. So there's been this desperate attempt over the last couple of weeks to say, oh, the PPP saw the agreement, was complicit with the signing of the agreement. Never mind, we led the fight in opposition for the release of the agreement. We led the criticism of the agreement. We pointed out all the areas of the agreement in opposition that were flawed and what we intended to correct. We corrected every single one of those areas in the new PSA and the new law replacing the 1986 one. We pointed all of this out. We led the charge against it. We led the charge against the signing bonus and the information that. Never mind all of that. Tries to rewrite history. But he's a madman. Nobody pays attention to him. So then that's on one hand. And then on the other hand, so that's the dunce approach to the oil and gas issue. Then they have some people seemingly intellectual pontificating on the issue. So the Christopher Rams, etc. And then you had a series of letters from Stanley Paul, Dr. Paul, and a number of people pointed out how hollow the arguments are because they said recycled arguments without looking seriously at what it takes to run a government and the balances that you have to strike in running a government, that you can have a fringe calls by these people who bear no responsibility for a country and its future. So they can say anything, and they can use recycled arguments over and over that have been disproved. So the people said, here are some of the things that you have to answer when you make this call. What is the track record of the countries that try to renegotiate? Like Venezuela. The pullout, the collapse of the oil industry from 3 million barrels to under 1 million barrels per day. No investment possibilities. Look around the world. They pose real tough questions to these clowns who have been writing and recycling arguments all the time. Emotional arguments, hoping to fool people. So this response came. And they're desperate, really desperate, to latch on to anything. So the latest has been, in an attempt to keep this issue going, Kit Nascimento. Now, Kit Nascimento wrote some letters in the newspapers and pointing out how flawed and recycled the arguments are, and saying to them, you have not answered the substance of questions posed by several people, including Stanley Paul and the others, because you have occupied this domain of mediocrity for so long that you start believing in the nonsense that you talk. That is what people have been saying. And it's so recycled, it's like brain dead. Every week you'll hear them come at the same thing over and over. The Kaichor News will come here and ask the same brain dead questions over and over without seeing the overarching big picture. They can't see it. So the people are posing some very uncomfortable questions. So Ram and the others are running for cover now. They're seeking refuge everywhere. So the newest refuge has been the letters of Kit Nascimento. So Kit Nascimento made it clear, this is my opinion. The letters reflect his opinion. Now, Kit Nascimento's opinions are valuable, and I hope he continues to express them in the debates because they make the other side very uncomfortable. And I hope he does that. And as a Guyanese, he has a right to do so. But they want to elevate Kit Nascimento's opinions, what he says are his opinions, to a point where he speaks definitively on the government's position. And so the president has made it clear. He doesn't need Kit Nascimento to express his position. His official position has been known from the beginning. One, in opposition, we said the agreement is lopsided. We spoke about renegotiating basically the 5 contracts that were there outstanding by a new PSA, new fiscal terms, which we have done. We made it clear we are now renegotiating the Stabroek block, and we gave the reasons. We said we will try to eke more out of 2 things through better contract management. We'll try to get more from the existing contract, and 2, that we will try to get more income for the country using the same, our negotiating skills, as a result of which we have done the gas to energy project that will bring $378 million per year of savings to the Guyanese public without even touching the contract, but because of the free gas that we're going to get now. So that APNU sign on in their PSA that we should pay for. because of superior skill. The president has been clear about that. Doesn't need a Kit Nascimento to interpret. Now, Kit Nascimento can interpret it, but he's not the official spokesperson for the president. The president has made that explicit. And definitely Kit Nascimento is not the official spokesperson for the People's Progressive Party. But he has a right to express a view. And if he says that anyone who renegotiates a contract like this can lose the elections, that's his view. That's not the official position of the party. But look at Nigel Hughes, a long statement. This is desperation again. The president's premier spokesperson, advisor on public relations, and joint attendee at the president press conference, Kit Nascimento, provided the position of the president on renegotiation of the PSA. In his own words, and presumably those of the president. Presumably those of the president. President doesn't need to, you don't need to presume this. You don't need to guess what the president has said. He said it before. The time may come, in fact, for the government to initiate the renegotiation of the 2016 PSA contract, but it's certainly not now. Any attempt at it would be a prescription for losing the elections. This is Kit Nascimento. The president will not renegotiate the contract in 2025 because he will lose the elections. He translated that. Now, the president never said, there's a Kit Nascimento in a letter. If I take, imagine this is so rich, coming from a man who is ExxonMobil's lawyer, who said that if ExxonMobil has a conflict with Guyana, he will take their side, who does not disclose how much money, will not disclose how much money he has received from Exxon so far, and especially around the 2016 period when the contract was signed, who lies openly to say he doesn't deal with his portfolio. Another member of his firm deals with this portfolio, so I can't be blamed. Never mind, the firm gets paid, he collects the money too, you know? He says, I don't deal with his portfolio, but we have him on tape appearing for Exxon at the CCJ, lies blatantly, now takes another man's word, Kit Nascimento, and say, oh, that must be the president's position on the elections. They'll lose the election. If Kit Nascimento don't know, is not a spokesperson for the People's Progressive Party, but he has a right to share an opinion. He has a right to share an opinion. In fact, I think they're hoping to win by arguing conveniently that you renegotiate the contract. But Nigel Hughes would never even initiate. If they had to even manage in government, they wouldn't have gotten the gas to energy project going or the local content law, because Exxon didn't want that. Exxon didn't want the local content law, and the other one, they wanted us to pay for the gas. Nigel Hughes would have said, oh, that's your interest? Let's go in keeping with your interests. So Christopher Ram then can't respond to the substance of Stanley Paul's question and the others. So now he latches on to the same thing. Readers owe Mr. Nascimento a debt of gratitude for his accidental admissions. They reveal more than prudence may dictate. Kit Nascimento accidentally admitted, I know that we will lose the elections if we renegotiate the contract. I don't know if Kit Nascimento Nascimento is not part of our planning process. Kit Nascimento is not a member of this party. Kit Nascimento in the past was a major figure in the PNC government, and he can't tell us what are the issues that resonate with people. We have done the polls. We've seen all that resonate with people, and we know that it is the fulfillment of the promise and the work on the ground that will win the elections in a landslide. And people see through this. So here again, all of this is done to make this the one issue election. Forget about our corruption in the 5 years, forget about the mismanagement of the AFC APNU in the 5 years, forget the broken promises. Let's talk only about oil and gas. And the eureka moment for Nigel Hughes, this guy has to be shameless to say anything about Exxon. Remember, he said, I wouldn't have anything to say about the Exxon thing. I farmed that out to the other people now, and I see some of it being exposed by Leonard Craig, how they formulate policy in the AFC on oil and gas sector. And that would be an interesting thing to read. Now, the mob has been at work again in the last week also. The PNC mob and some of the hostiles on James Bond saying that he supports Irfan Ali for a second term. And I think it's again the desperation that is creeping into their camp. People are jumping ship in large numbers because they don't want to go down in a sinking racist ship that the AFC and APNU are now sailing. Nobody wants to be part of that. No right-thinking Guyanese want to be part of a country like that. They're jumping ship. It's not sustainable, and they know that not only are they faced with a defeat at the elections, but they have a big problem with future sustainability of the party on this racist ideology that they insist on using. Nothing to do about progress, but racism. So people are leaving them because they're thinking about their own futures in a well-thought-out manner. They don't want to be associated with the racism, and secondly, they want to make sure that they are part of something that is more lofty, that works towards bringing people together, that would work on improving people's lives, or ensuring our people have better jobs, higher paying jobs, better quality education, health care. And who and which party represents that vision in this country today? No other party except the People's Progressive Party. So it's a logical choice for people to want to come or to gravitate to the PPP because they've seen it not only in the manifesto promises, which we made when we were in opposition, but they've seen that we've kept faith, that we have fulfilled our promises, that we didn't say one thing and we've done something else, and that we've gone even beyond the promises of our manifesto to enhance the well-being of our people. So what happened with James Bond is not a unique situation. He is one of the higher profile individuals because he was in the PNC's leadership, and that is why he's gotten so much publicity. But there are lots of people, hard-working activists of that party, who threw their belly out for them in 2015, who were neglected totally by the PNC, who recognized that they would have no future, their children, with that party, and they've come to the PPP. So James Bond may be in the news more, but there are droves of other people who have, over the past 4 years, been making that journey over to us, and even before 2020, some of them did that. And they have been warmly embraced by the People's Progressive Party. And they're part of implementing that bigger vision where people are not discriminated against and they all have access equally to the future wealth of this country. Now, considering what happened, why wouldn't it be natural for a person like James Bond to want to come to the PPP? James Bond was in the PNC. He was one of the most ardent critics of the government and almost and very active against the government, and sometimes in manners that are, I would consider in the past, vile. So he supported his party, he supported the leaders there, but many of them were sidetracked, the young people in that party. So James Bond and Kwame McCoy and the others were contemporaries, young people. James Bond went with the PNC. He took that path. Kwame McCoy took a path into the PPP when they were contemporaries many years ago. Young people here, they used to hang out sometimes at Freedom House and different places. Look at Kwame McCoy's growth in the People's Progressive Party. This party that they say is Indo-Guyanese, Indian party. Kwame McCoy at our Congress, the last Congress, got one of the highest votes in the Congress in an open, secret contest in a party that they claim is Indo-Guyanese. He is a member of our central committee of the party, leadership of the party. Kwame McCoy became a member of Parliament and is a minister of the government. James Bond in an Afro-Guyanese party, what happened to him? What happened to him? He worked hard, etc., nothing, basically. So when you look at, this is how you have to look at politics. They would never want you to look at it that way. Now, James Bond, I saw him mention something about money we're spending in bachelor's adventure and stuff. Nothing was promised to James Bond. No pecuniary benefits. Nothing that he will get a contract if he comes to the PPP. He voluntarily decided, and I suspect it's a well thought out decision about his own future, decided he wants to support Irfan Ali and the People's Progressive Party and their agenda. This is something that we welcome. Lots of people will do that, but he was never promised anything to come to the PPP. And so for those who are running them down and saying, oh, he's a slave catcher and all kinds of things, house slave, etc. The vilest thing said about people because they choose in their own lives to, at some point in time, make an assessment as to what is good for them themselves. They get vilified by these lunatics, racist lunatics out there. So we have a support base. We're not giving up on our supporters. We have made it clear the PPP supporters who stood with us, Indo-Guyanese, Amerindians, etc., we've all fought for them. But we made it clear that we welcome new people to our party. And once they come in and believe in what we believe in, and they fight for freedom and for progress, and they subscribe to our ideals, then they would be welcome in our party. That makes us stronger for the future and stronger for those who are with us now. And our base understands this. Nobody gets promised money to come to the PPP. But what's wrong with people who are PPP people across this country getting benefits from the government too? Some people say, oh, that's a PPP man. We are saying to people, anybody in this country, apply for a scholarship, you'll get one paid for the government of Guyana. When I go to party meetings and I meet party people, I'd say, why the hell are you trying to get a scholarship too? If they hear me there, it's not like a Valda Lawrence kind of story, only for you, because we're promoting it at the national level, but I want party members, I push them. I want them to succeed. I want positive people in the PPP. I'll push them too, to apply for the house lot, to get the scholarship, and if necessary, help them along the path too. Why shouldn't they apply for contracts too as Guyanese when other people are doing it? So when we're in government, we must say, oh, to avoid the Starbuck News and the others saying you're PPP and getting a contract, only APNU people must get contracts now. So that's what we should say. It's pure nonsense. So we have no apology for making to make to anyone for PPP people benefiting too from everything. But when James Bond or many others who come to us, they're not promised anything. But what if they benefit? What if they benefit? We've seen what has happened with some others. Every day they're vilified, the hits and jams people. Every day they're vilified because they got some work. So this is an issue here that will see many more. And why is it people are leaving them? You will see for yourself. Nobody wants to be associated with a dead movement, a moribund movement. And that's what the PNC and AFC are. And selfish, elitist, they're only for themselves. Everything is for themselves. So I saw this issue, the James Bond issue, in this week in the media. So I wanted to address that matter too. I had spoken about the Aubrey Barker Road and the need for consequences against those people, the contractors who laid those poles in, the light poles, and did not do so according to specification, as well as those who should supervise. I gather that the report has been concluded, a joint report by Public Works and GPL, and there's a recommendation to the tender board to blacklist one contractor, and also the investigation is continuing, so there'll be further disciplinary action taken against other individuals. We need to take firm action against these individuals. There's some people at the engineering level, at the procurement level, and let me repeat again to all those people who didn't hear us, maybe did not listen before, we've found some cases where procurement officers in some agencies are doing some of the most egregious things. We've made it clear to people contracted that if any engineer, any procurement officer of the state were to, in any agency, were to solicit a bribe from you or to say they can give you a contract if you give them any money, or to accept shoddy work if you pay them, then just let us know. You can send in even anonymously the letter to us, and trust me, it will be investigated. We are looking at this seriously. There are some individuals who are still, but it's cleverly done, who might be doing this. I've had 2 instances where people came to me, and I'm investigating them now, where procurement officers are involved. So I want to make sure that people understand that once again. This week, I see people are worried about the budget. Starbuck knows that there may be vote sweeteners in the budget. In their editorial, the PNC person who writes these editorials worried about the sweeteners, vote sweeteners in the budget. And so the thing is that the budget will be read, and you will see that the budget sticks with what we promised the people of this country. The things that I've mentioned, the core issues, the continuation of improving people's lives, and not vote sweeteners. But so the purpose of the editorial is that in an election year, maybe, I don't know what you should do, maybe not have a budget. This is the same persons who will defend the $419.5 billion that APNU spent from the last budget they passed in November 2018 to August 2020, when the elections were held without any parliamentary sitting or approval. It wasn't vote sweeteners that they were talking about. They spent all the money without anything. It was the same Granger and his government who suffered a defeat in a no-confidence motion with the CCJ prohibiting certain types of expenditure, along with, even after the CCJ ruled that in a situation where a government has fallen, you can't make certain type of expenditures. This government didn't fall, and they continue to make the expenditure in defiance of the CCJ ruling. But how short are people's memories in this country when you could have an editorial like that? Thank you.
Dr. Jagdeo, Cordell Jones from Livewire News. I'd like to bring your attention to a video circulating on social media. Member of Parliament Annette Ferguson is highlighting 9 wells in Region 9 for the entire coalition period. Could you give us a brief synopsis of what has been accomplished under the PPP administration in relation to potable water and across the regions?
If I give you a brief synopsis, but the thing is that you can have a detailed breakdown of this. So right now, we're doing maybe about 15 water treatment plants, as well as iron removal plants to improve the quality of the water, running into billions of dollars that will improve access to, not just access to water, but better quality water for about 300,000 people along the coastal belt. The Hinterland program what what we spent in half a year or less than a half a year, they've spent in 5 years in hinterland water provision facilities. So you have to forgive Annette Ferguson. I think she's trying hard, but she has very little to work with. She's trying hard to say they did something. I wouldn't be surprised that Annette Ferguson would put out the next video to tell you how many trips they took to the toilet in the coalition government. I wouldn't be surprised if she did that, because they mistake routine functioning of a government with a vision and the capability and the ability to put together large-scale projects that will transform a sector and transform people's lives and move things to a qualitatively higher level. So they often get marred in mediocrity, and they think they're working very hard doing routine things. We could have done the routine things with, say, the provision of power. We could have biked up a few more fossil fuel power plants, but we opted for a bigger facility, using our gas to generate power that would allow us to cut emissions by 45% and double the output at the same time. That would result in a 378 million saving for people, in consumers of our gas, cooking gas, and the cheaper power that will create a whole new sector now by making cooking gas an export industry, by saving on our balance of payment. We opted for the big project. It's going to take a while. It's a complex project, but it will be completed and it will serve the people of the country. We opted for a big project to transform transmission mains by putting 230 kVA power lines so we can distribute power. Ask them about that. So their thing is that they transform. Patterson went to Germany and bought a piece of equipment, a 5 megawatt equipment or something like that for the Essequibo coast. And he went to inspect it himself. I don't know what took place in the inspection, but you know, with sticky finger Pato, anything could happen. So that is their routine functioning. No plan for the future, if you ask us. Oh, the hospitals, we didn't have any new plans to build new hospitals. So let's see what we do. Every day, Valda Lawrence was looking for somebody new to hire who had to comply with a party card. That's the kind of thing. So it's this small thing mindset that they all have. They can't see the need to work in a transformational way. Listen to the Prime Minister speak, our Prime Minister, not the rubber stamp that they had. Just look at the difference between the two. A man without, Kwame McCoy has a bigger portfolio now than he had as Prime Minister. I keep saying this all the time, and it's the fact. You can check it. A bigger portfolio than their entire Prime Minister. But you remember the Cummingsburg Accord. They couldn't even keep what they signed among themselves. How could you have a coalition again? Or they're together. But imagine them talking about coalition now. And they had a coalition government, and it was governed by an accord, the Cummingsburg Accord. And in the Cummingsburg Accord, it says the Prime Minister will chair the cabinet. He never chaired any cabinet, only when maybe Granger was out of the country, and I don't even think the people attended any cabinet when Granger was out. But that was his role in the Cummingsburg Accord. He was supposed to hire, I think, people to all the constitutional agencies. Nothing of the sort. He was supposed to look at the long functions of the Prime Minister. He ended up with a portfolio that saw him DPI and Chronicle. That was his portfolio. That was Nagamoto's portfolio, DPI and Chronicle. And both had, well, Chronicle had its own board. So it was only DPI he had, nothing else. And by the way, they gave him something he was supposed to be in charge of constitutional reform. So Anil Nandalal told me that Nigel Hughes or received, because they appropriated $20 million. It's either he received it or they were given as a group $20 million to prepare a report on constitutional reform. There is a picture in 2016 where he handed over a report. I don't know what the report is. To Nagamoto. Nagamoto was supposed to take this forward, constitutional reform, which they had promised in their manifesto. Nothing happened between 2016 and the end of their term on constitutional reform. But we spent $20 million on this. Nigel Hughes was the convener of the group. You should ask Nigel Hughes about the money, how much he got paid for that work. Now, this work was done without consulting with the opposition party, and this is constitutional reform. And secondly, without consulting with the public. So that's how they were pursuing constitutional reform. We promised constitutional reform, which we did. When I was president, we signed a whole new range of measures and kind of policies in the Constitution of Guyana. For example, we put in the standing committees, the sectoral committees. We had restriction of the powers of the president, a whole range of constitutional measures that we had at that time. A ton, progressive. That's when we put in the Rights Commission, the 5 Rights Commissions, a whole range of things. I don't want to enumerate them. I was thinking about listing them out, but rather than doing that now, it's too long. We did it. Public Procurement Commission. We kept our word, we promised it. In the last elections, we said we will set up a body similar to what we did in the past. 5 from government, 5 from opposition, and the speaker chairs it. And we did that, and they're working now. So imagine they started their constitutional reform and they didn't even consult with the opposition. Nigel Hughes or the group got paid $20 million. They handed in a report to the rubber stamp, and the report died with the rubber stamp. And so that was the issue. So I lost track of the... Annette, yes. So I'm talking about their great ability to engage with small things. Annette Ferguson and 9 wells down in the hinterland. Since we've come into the office, you ask the people of Region 9 what benefits they have seen. What benefits they have seen in not just water, in almost every sector, every single sector. And this is why they have no achievements, because when they talk about, at one time you remember when they were contesting local government elections, they said they end flooding in Georgetown. They end flooding in Georgetown. This is the kind of thinking that they have. So I don't have anything to Annette. But to give her credit, she's the only one trying. She's the only one trying. To give her credit, and not that I don't dislike her. Because I think deep down in her heart, she likes the party that treats her badly, and she's trying desperately. But Annette was a small fry in the government at that time, and they don't have anything to run. Ask Annette Ferguson what she did for the people in the same area where she lives and where she used to work in Georgetown. And they will tell you they didn't see her and Valda and all of the others in the coalition period. So why go to Region 9? Talk about your own area, what you did for people in Georgetown. And I got it. They threw her out of the party office in South, and she had put in the gate, and she fetched away the gate back. It might be wrong. This might be coming from the rumor mill. You can check it back. That she had put in the gate there on the party office, and when they threw her out of the office recently, she fetched away her gate.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo, Trina Williams, Guyana Chronicle. You just spoke about the budget sticking with what
Get some coffee for me. Yeah.
the budget sticking with what you promised the people. However, we've seen the opposition heavily criticize the government for using the budget to fulfill its manifesto promises. Recently, we saw WPA saying that the budget will be used for election gimmicks. Do you believe that this further justifies what you've been saying about them being against progress?
They're always against progress. So they keep saying, oh, money, too much on infrastructure. But like I pointed out in the last week, whose road you don't want to build? You tell us now. Because everyone wants their road fixed, every Guyanese citizen. So you tell us whose road not to fix. Tell us which highway where people that is congested now, you don't want us to widen or repave. Tell us why, if we don't spend the money on the power plant, where we spend it, where we get the power from? Or should we not spend money on the water treatment plants for all of our people to improve access to water? They can't come to the details, but they have these generic things. Oh, it's going to be used for politics. Of course, we promise the people better facilities. So the money will be in the budget to continue our housing program because we promise them greater access to housing. And so we will do that in an election year, and we'll do it in a year that is not election. From the first year we got into office, we started doing that. So it will be a continuation. They have nothing to talk about. You should listen to these, like you mentioned, WPA. This low energy, waste of time kind of thing they droll on all night. Like some people send me the thing, and after a couple of minutes, normally I don't sleep, but they want to really put me to sleep, which might be therapy for me. You know, when I listen to this, and then races all the time, they have to find something. Somebody got his finger bruised, oh, it got to be because of the racist PPP government. That's all they do, race and stupidity, race and stupidity. This is the opposition. So I don't put too much store on what WPA and their 2 votes talk about. We have to look out for the people of this country, all the people of this country. Their desires for better life or their desire for a better life must guide our policies and the spending. And that is what we are doing. Look at where we are putting the money. It is in health, education, housing, water, infrastructure. It's in job creation. Those are the areas in recreational facilities that will change the lives of our people. We don't have too much time to waste paying these people.
And you briefly spoke about AFC's attack on its former member, Leonard Craig. However, Nigel Hughes had stated that he supports free political participation. However, in the party statement, we saw Craig being attacked for challenging Mr. Adams' comments, and this press statement didn't challenge any merits of his argument. What are your thoughts on the action by the party, and do you see this being that party's future approach to any person who challenges their views?
Yeah, it's the petty-mindedness of their politics, and it's Nigel Yu's desperation to make political mileage out of any situation. And he's looking increasingly isolated and exposed. People realize now that he's very, very shallow on policy matters, can't respond coherently to the basic of questions on policies. So he leaves himself open to all of these questions. And I can list all of the things that he has not responded to. Last week I did some of that. So on Leonard Craig, who was in the AFC and one of its leaders, I think it is they responded to him because he dared to share another view. But they're so desperate, and he is right in one thing that he said about them, that they're like some leaves blowing in the wind. So he didn't actually say that, but that's my paraphrasing of it. So he said, you are reactive to Jagdeo setting their agenda, and your reaction is not studied, and you look desperate, you look shallow, because you rely on, you think you're so bright, this pretense at being intellectual, that you can respond to anything without any research. And therefore the big blunder of you saying the Exim Bank loan was not approved will happen often because of your arrogance and your lack of preparedness, and you're reactive. So you set your press conference for Friday for that purpose, to get something to just talk about, because you don't have an agenda. So today, I heard they set their press conference for 3:30 today. They bring it from tomorrow to 3:30 today. So that's why I'm saying they're like a party where leaves are blowing in the wind. Any person offers advice or criticize them, they rush to correct. They rush to take, now they're taking Craig's advice, but it doesn't matter whether they do it at 3:30 today or 10 o'clock tomorrow or midnight on Saturday night, or whether Nigel Hughes will go to a market square where he hopes they have a captive audience and talk about his ancestors sent him there. Doesn't matter. People don't listen to them because they're spent. People know who they are. It doesn't matter. So although Leonard Craig, I think his old sympathy for them was saying, boy, do a better job, right? But he said it was all because of their arrogance, pretense at being intellectuals, not intellectuals, pretense. A point we've been making, the pseudo-intellectualism of the party. And 3, because they believe they're special, urban elite. So that was how, I think it's the intolerance of the urban elite and that they represent that came out in that vile press release from a political party. You know, how dare this man from number 5 village in region 5, I think number 5 village he's from, right? How dare this guy, countryman, you know, and they look down on him. He doesn't, how dare he has a view about us or what is right, etc. But I saw Craig gave them a fitting response. I can't remember the headline, but he said, really, I can't deal with the cognitive disorder or something of the AFC. And it's really, he's being kind when he speaks about cognitive disorder. So he's not a doctor, so they need Dr. Byro to treat them for cognitive disorder. So this is Nigel Hughes and the others. If they hadn't done that, that would have been uncharacteristic of them. So it is expected, this vile press release. And then I saw when Craig responded about the Vincent Adams, and a number of people have been digging into his past. I think that he was not this big person that they made him out to be. That they somehow in the Department of Energy in the United States, he was a deputy manager. So apparently he ended up as a deputy manager of a small project to clean up some nuclear waste, etc. In some area, this is in the Department of Energy, big superstructure with hundreds of thousands of projects. He was the deputy manager of one of the projects, not even manager. And someone, I don't know if it's true, but they said it was the sewage system in the area he was looking at. That is his big official from the Department of Energy that they were portraying him to be. Now, this is the guy who was disparaging about Leonard Craig. But now I think he's being exposed. I don't know how much of it is factual. People can dig themselves. You can go and check the project yourself, so you will see the level at which he retired. But as I said before, this is typical of the AFC. It's a consequence of this make-believe intellectualism. Oh, we know it all, we're intolerant to everybody. And therefore, whether he's a member or not, people who think differently, not, like us, we'll come after people hard, but if you can argue a case, it's fine with us. Because we go straight to the merits of the argument. If you can prove that we're wrong, and we believe that our policy making we should defend it, and that's why every week I come here and defend the policy making. They can say something, but they don't have to defend it. And if you criticize it, then you get cussed out. They don't want to defend it. Nigel Lewis has not defended any policy decision. He has not defended his justification of removing the children's grant. He's not defended the justification for adding taxes to people, increased taxation. He has not defended his justification for the removal of the old age, the subsidies and all of that for elderly people. A whole range of things. Doesn't defend. He just says, oh, this is our position. It's fiscal considerations, and that's the end of the matter. Fiscal considerations. So, yeah.
On the AFC, how do you respond to the fact that Hughes, who has defended individuals involved in some of Guyana's most horrific crimes, such as the Lusignan and Bartica massacres, known mass murderers, now positions himself as a critic of crime in Guyana without offering any concrete solutions? Do you believe this exposes a conflict of interest and undermines his credibility as a leader?
Yeah, I don't want to waste my time dealing too much with Nigel Hughes because, as I said before, what you should do is to get a comment from the AG. Let him deal more with that, about Nigel Hughes and who he has defended his sordid track record, basically, and connection with criminality. He himself was investigated for jury tampering, as the Starbuck News article pointed out. So I don't want to waste my time too much on him. Every week I touch them because they're out there making noise all the time. But I want to touch them only on policy issues. On the personal issues, let Anil deal with that.
Good afternoon. Milton Granum for Starbuck News. Has the Bureau of Statistics given a reason as to why the 2022 census numbers have not been released? And can you say how far along that process is also? And when?
No, I have not dealt with this. I saw it recently. I don't know. It would be with the Minister of Finance. I don't have any information on that issue at this stage.
Good afternoon, Rihanna Kaichor News. My first question is in relation to the gas to energy Exim Bank loan for the gas to energy project. Sir, can you confirm whether the state is required to provide a guarantee of repayment to the Exim Bank of America in the event that the gas to energy project fails to meet its debt repayment obligations? And if so, what measures are in place to safeguard the interests of the Guyanese taxpayers in such a scenario?
Yeah, go on.
My second question is that the government has repeatedly made excuses to make the gas to energy project documents public, yet you tout transparency for the management of the sector. Is there a reason for withholding such important information from the nation?
Yeah, that's it. The issue is that there's a sovereign guarantee. I think that was clear that there is a sovereign guarantee. So the project will be completed, and like any lender, they need collateral, and in this case, once there is borrowing by the state, there's always the sovereign guarantee. There's no any special guarantee outside of that. And the second issue, it's clearly, this is a Kaichor News make-believe issue. There's full transparency surrounding the project. Every one of those, we've gone to open tender for the gas to energy project. In every instance, with Exxon for the pipeline, the pre-qualified companies were known. We went to tender for them. On the power plant and the NGL facility, open public tender, an American company won the contract. On the transmission main, open tender, the Indian company Kalipataru won the contract. On the control center, an American company and a Chinese company both won elements of the contract, one for supply of the equipment and the building to do the control center. Full transparency. We have given the numbers. We told you what the numbers are in terms of the total cost of all of these, because we don't have to speculate as to the cost. We have exact numbers, what the contract prices are, so you know what the price of the total project. You just have to add down the contract price. If there is deviation from it, you would know, because there could be claims, and then you would have a deviation. It may go to arbitration, but at the end, the numbers may vary on the basis of that deviation. But right now, the number, the spending is known. You know what are the benefits, what selling the end product or just the electricity would yield in terms of revenue, what selling the gas would yield in terms of revenue, and the total savings to the project. So you have every bit of the project publicly tendered, or tendered through a selective, like in this case with the pipeline method. You know what the total revenue of the project will be. you know what the total expenditure would be, you know what the total loan to the project will be. I think we've been very transparent at this all. So, and I can give you back the numbers if you want them. Every week I come here and tell you what the numbers are. It's not like you have to speculate anymore. We have signed contracts that were done through public tender. So it's just a make-believe issue in Kaichor News, make-believe all the time, because every week they have to come up with the same old story over and over again. Yes, let's move on.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo from Grove with Kaichor. I just have two quick questions. The first one is in pertaining, earlier you spoke about the ongoing debate of renegotiation with views from the opposition and views from your side. But has the government sought any advice from any independent expert outside of the political climate here in the country to see if there might be a possibility of renegotiation, or has it just decided to say, well, Exxon is not renegotiating and this contract sanctity and that's the end of it?
So this is for like APNU. You know, the thing sometimes that rub people the wrong way, especially with the chattering class and the make-believe class in Georgetown, so a few of them, is that they believe that a political party, having contested elections, having made promises to the electorate, must now seek their approbation. And it is an affliction that resides in the editorial policy of the Starbuck News too, that somehow we must seek their approbation. Transparency International, human rights, never mind they're some corrupt, useless organization, don't have any constituencies, to do what we promise the people of the country. So forget the guy who lives in Linden or in Buxton or Port Moran or Paramakatoy or Aishalton. Forget him, that you know these people. We promise them to deliver certain things, but we must now, before we plan anything, we must seek their approbation. So it rubs them the wrong way. APNU will do this sort of thing. Granger, they love Granger because Granger set up a COI on everything under the sun. He had about 9 COIs going, Commission of Inquiries, on land, on prison, on public service. Nothing happened to them. But people got cushy payment, including people from the GHRA. Hundreds of millions of dollars were spent paying these people to inquire into various things, and the reports were useless. Threw them away. Inquire as to what to do. You heard the same affliction, AFC. We got to do a review to tell us if we attempted to rig the last elections. PNC said, Norton, if we get into office, we will do a review. You know that that's true. I can find you the section. We'll do a review to see if anything is wrong with the PSA, if they get into office. You notice we don't hide behind reviews. It looks a bit arrogant to those people, but it's assertiveness. We know what we want for the people of the country because we listen to them all the time. So we don't need to pay a consultant to tell us about the provisions of the PSA that the PNC signed, which says one thing, that you have to have the consent of the other party to renegotiate. And if they've already said publicly and privately they're not going to renegotiate, therefore you have a dispute, which lawyer will tell you what will come out of a dispute resolution mechanism if you have to go to that? Which lawyer will tell you that? Because they don't know, they can't know what will come out when you subject yourself to a dispute resolution mechanism. And then, because of the stability clause that they have in the same contract, assuming we prevail, then we have to compensate large sums of money. Why do you need somebody to tell you something that is patently obvious. It is only when you want to hide behind a review or you don't know what the hell you're doing. And that is something that we are not into in the PPP. And sometimes the self-assertiveness comes over as arrogance, but because we know what we're doing. And sometimes strong governments don't board well for these clowns who want to, like every week, Christopher Ram and others, right? Since time immemorial, since Noah was a boy, he's been writing, trying to hold back progress in the country. These are spent individuals who have lived their best years complaining and now want to hold back the young people or damage their future prospects. They're never positive about anything. They're gripers. They don't talk about getting our children educated through better scholarships, like we talk about everything. Getting them a higher quality of health care or getting recreational facilities done for young people. All day long is some gripe, sore, issue. Oh, we're not consulted on these matters. We don't have to consult with them on every issue. The people of the country give you the mandate. You have to account to them at election time. So that's why we don't need somebody to tell us what's obvious to us.
Okay, secondly, do you believe that this contract that the government signed in 2016, the previous administration, has become like a bargaining chip, not only to Exxon, but other oil companies, and negatively impacting the industry, and might even impact our future projects, because now the oil company can say, well, we got 2% here, and we can now bargain with this and lower the standard of the industry. Do you believe this is so, or?
I don't get that point. Like, what do you mean?
Like, for example, I think years ago, there was an article that was carried from Brazil, whereby they said Guyana dropped the standard of the industry by agreeing to 2% royalty. So can this negatively impact not only other countries, but also the future PSAs that you guys have raised the royalty rate, that these companies can say, well, if we got 2% before, you got to give us it again?
Yeah, well, we made it clear that nobody is coming the day of the 2% like that Trotman had. Where he signed in that agreement, you're not going to get an agreement of that nature anymore. So the fiscal terms have been laid out now, and we said we're not budging on the fiscal terms. So if you're going to come in future auction, those are the terms. We said we're a bit more flexible on the tough measures that we put in place. For example, right now, if you have a PSA or a lease, a permit, provisional permit to explore, you can do nothing in the period for 5 years, and then there are no consequences to you. In the new act and the new PSA, if you promise to spend $300 million and you don't, you have to pay the government $150 million US for the loss of time for holding this valuable permit. So those things are a little tough, and they're complaining about those issues more than the fiscal terms, because the fiscal terms are still competitive globally. Although they have vastly improved for Guyana, they are still globally competitive. So moving it from 2 to 10 and from 75% for cost recovery to 65, and then from 0 tax to 10% tax, still keep us in a competitive range globally. We're hoping that we could be a bit more flexible on the other side, but so that's one area that we're prepared to look at. And then we believe with the seismic work that we're gonna do soon, that those would lead future auctions in spite of the new fiscal regime that everyone has to comply with now, that with the addition of the seismic work that we are doing, our seismic data, that we'll have very good competitive auctions in the future from the more serious companies.
Just if I could just ask one more question. You have said in the past that your government is willing to go back to the table with Exxon and claw back values in some areas. I know you said the gas to shore project is one way, the local content is one way, and new oil spill legislation. What other ways are your government going to meet with Exxon to see if you can claw back some value from this lopsided contract?
So those are substantial, as you could see. The gas to energy project will bring huge savings to our people. So we can talk about, if we're getting $300 and something million more per year, savings to the consuming public, that alone is massive. And then a new export industry. So that's one. The spin-off benefits would be enormous for industries because of lower electricity costs. The local content law is now going to, we hope that it will get higher. It's about $700 million US a year to Guyanese company. So that's substantial. We also, through the new law that we passed, replacing the Petroleum Act of 1986, the Petroleum Activities Act, we've now moved back to keep the decommissioning money. Any deduction for decommissioning money must now go to an escrowed account and not kept by the companies. That is a major change from what we had in the past, but it's done with mutual consent. It's done with mutual consent from the old PSA. The old PSA, Trotman's PSA, was that the oil companies keep this. So a lot of those kinds of over time will get back some benefits to the people of this country. Those are the kinds of things I mentioned. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.